Okay, so imagine this, right? You're at the airport gate, all set to board, ticket in hand, and someone just tells you, flat out, your ticket's fake.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough.
And then, before you can even really react, they rip it up right there in front of you.
Wow.
Now get this. The person whose ticket just got destroyed, her father is, well, let's just say he's the quiet force behind the entire airline.
Oh, okay. So that adds a whole layer, a massive layer.
Exactly. Let's dive into that. Today, we're looking at this really incredible incident at an airport, an encounter that honestly went in directions nobody expected and had these huge ripple effects.
Right, way beyond just one person missing a flight.
Totally. We got a detailed account here focusing on Amara. She's the young woman traveling alone,
Mm.
and Gloria, the flight attendant, whose actions really kicked everything off.
And for you listening, this story is, I think, a really powerful way to look at how just one person's actions, one moment, can actually trigger some pretty big changes, even in a giant company.
Yeah, definitely. It's fascinating how something that seems kind of isolated, like this one interaction, can suddenly shine a light on,
Yeah.
well, on the bigger picture within a system.
Absolutely. So our goal here isn't just to recount what happened to Amara, but to dig into the why of it all. Why did it happen? Why did it matter so much? And crucially, what were the pretty impactful steps taken afterwards?
By looking closely, you'll get, I think, a much richer sense of how things like fairness, accountability,
Hmm.
maybe even bias play out in the real world.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Busy airport gate, you know the vibe, right? That travel buzz.
Hmm. Constant motion.
And there's Amara. She's young, heading home from this leadership conference she was at. Probably feeling pretty good, but maybe like a little bit nervous too. Traveling solo.
Sure, that makes sense.
She's got her ticket, passport all ready.
Ah,
And it's worth noting, Amara comes from, let's say, a background with significant influence, but her parents really raised her to value, integrity, respect for everyone, not flashing things around.
that's key context. So what jumps out right away is how polite Amara is when she first interacts with Gloria, the flight attendant.
Yeah.
Friendly, standard procedure.
Right. But Gloria's response is different. It's curt,
Huh.
almost like she's already annoyed.
Yeah, dismissive. And then she immediately asks Amara, quite sharply apparently, about traveling alone. That right there kind of sets a tone, doesn't it? It feels like suspicion from the get-go.
It really does. And that kind of questioning can sometimes, hint that maybe someone's jumping to conclusions.
Exactly, preconceived notions, maybe.
And it escalates pretty fast from there. Gloria takes Amara's ticket, looks at it really intensely, like she's searching for a flaw,
Mm-hmm.
and then just declares it looks invalid.
Even after Amara explains, like, hey, my father's office booked this.
Yep. Amara calmly explains that, but Gloria just waves it off, and this is where it gets really pointed.
Yeah.
Gloria basically accuses her of trying to pull a fast one.
Wow.
And adds, and this is the line that really stings, I've seen plenty of passengers like you trying to get on flights they're not entitled to.
Oof, passengers like you. Yeah, that phrase is loaded.
You can just feel it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the moment Amara herself starts thinking, hang on, is this really about the ticket? Or is it about me?
Yeah.
She suspects
So,
bias.
Gloria's statement, it just screams snap judgment, doesn't it? Making huge assumptions based on what? A quick glance. It's a classic example of how prejudice can sneak into interactions.
Totally. What's kind of remarkable, though, is Amara's reaction even then. She doesn't blow up. She actually tries to de-escalate, suggests Gloria just try scanning the ticket again.
Which shows incredible composure, really, under that kind of pressure. Trying to find a simple solution.
But Gloria, nope, refuses. The account says she actually scoffs, rolls her eyes,
Oh, come on.
and then does the unthinkable, rips the ticket in half right there at the gate.
Just rips it.
Just rips it. Amara's protesting, obviously, but Gloria just tells her, move along, little girl, and find another flight if she can pay for it.
Little girl, the condescension is just,
All right.
wow. The disrespect is off the charts.
Palpable humiliation, right?
Yeah.
The account mentions Amara's cheeks burning, this anger rising up, fighting against that composure her dad always talked about. She almost makes a scene, but then thinks, okay, last resort, call dad, even though she really didn't want to.
That act of tearing the ticket,
Mm-hmm.
it's so final, so aggressive. It's a pure power play, zero empathy. And Amara's internal conflict, wanting to stand up for herself, but not wanting to pull the, my dad owns the airline card, says a lot about her.
Yeah, it really does. Her deciding to call him just highlights how badly Gloria handled it, how there was just no other way to resolve it directly.
All reasonable attempts failed.
Okay, so let's bring in Dad. Jonathan Coates, he's the man behind the curtain, essentially. Built one of the world's biggest airlines, very successful, but prefers to stay, out of the limelight.
Right, not someone who throws his weight around typically.
So when he gets this call from Imara, clearly distressed,
Uh-huh.
his reaction is described as measured, but there's this immediate, undercurrent of serious concern. He goes into action mode.
And you mentioned his core beliefs that success is kind of meaningless without fairness, without compassion. He hates flaunting his position.
Exactly. So this isn't about privilege for him. It's about principle.
His character here is so important for what happens next. His reluctance to use his influence, unless it's about fixing a clear injustice, is really telling.
Yeah. He immediately calls his assistant, tells him what happened, and heads straight to the airport himself, determined.
It shows how seriously he took her experience. It wasn't just, oh, my daughter had a bad travel day. It was something fundamentally wrong happened here.
Right. Meanwhile, back at the gate, Imara hasn't budged. She's upset, obviously, but resolute. She has a right to be there.
Good for her, standing her ground.
She's watching Gloria, who's now dealing with other passengers, putting on this, fake, polite face,
Yeah.
but still throwing these disapproving looks Amara's way. Amara's probably just reeling, wondering what Gloria's even thinking.
Yeah, the injustice must be burning.
Then Jonathan arrives. And you can imagine, he walks into the terminal and airline staff immediately recognize him. The whole atmosphere probably shifts instantly.
Oh, I bet. Suddenly, it's not just some anonymous passenger complaint. The recognition itself underlines the power dynamics, right?
Totally. He calmly asks for the supervisor, Richard, guides Imara over, not making a scene, but clearly purposeful.
Setting the stage for a very different kind of conversation.
In Richard, the supervisor, he sees Jonathan Coates walking towards him with Imara, and he's visibly, thrown off balance.
I can only imagine. His boss's bosses. Well, the ultimate boss.
Jonathan introduces himself politely, but firmly explains his daughter was supposed to be on this flight, but her ticket was destroyed by a staff member. Says he'd like to understand why.
Calm, direct, effective.
Richard is shocked, sees the torn ticket in Amara's hand, goes pale, apparently, immediately acknowledges how unprofessional it is, and asks who's involved.
He knows this is bad, real bad.
Gloria's called over. She tries to defend herself, right? Claims the ticket looks suspicious, she was just protecting the flight's integrity. Standard excuses.
But that doesn't really fly, does it? Not when procedure wasn't followed?
Not with Jonathan. He calmly points out that even if she was suspicious, there are proper ways to handle that. Humiliating a passenger and destroying their property, absolutely not acceptable.
Exactly. It highlights the need for protocol, for respectful service, no matter what. You don't just get to make up the rules and tear up tickets.
Richard quickly suggests they move somewhere more private, probably wants to contain this.
Smart move from his perspective.
So they go to a staff area. Jonathan makes it clear, look, I'm not here to cause a scene, but this needs to be addressed properly. My daughter was treated unfairly, plain and simple. The ticket was valid.
He's focusing on the core issues, the mistreatment.
Richard is falling over himself, apologizing at this point. Gloria, though, still seems defensive, unremorseful, according to the account.
That lack of remorse is telling, isn't it? Suggests the problem might run deeper than just one bad judgment call.
Jonathan really drives home the point about the airline's commitment to respect for all passengers. It doesn't matter who they are. He frames Gloria's actions as undermining the company's core values.
Which elevates it, right? It's not just a customer service slip-up. It's about the airline's identity and principles.
Then Jonathan looks directly at Gloria and asks if she has anything she wants to say to his daughter.
Oh, the pressure in that room must have been intense.
Tense silence. Then Gloria offers this very brief, kind of forced apology.
Perfunctory, yeah. Like she was told to.
Imara accepts it, but she's measured. She says something like, the issue wasn't just the paper. It was how you treated me. Makes it clear Gloria still doesn't really get it.
Good for Amar for saying that. She recognized the apology wasn't genuine, but she still addressed the core issue, the lack of basic respect.
The meeting wraps up with Richard immediately arranging a first-class replacement ticket for Amara, apologizing again and again.
Which, is nice, but it also kind of unintentionally highlights that very disparity Amara experienced, right? Suddenly, knowing who her father is gets her first-class treatment.
Exactly. That's something Amara reflects on later. So they're in the lounge. Jonathan offers to fly back with her. She agrees.
Probably feels safer, more comfortable with him there after that ordeal.
Yeah. But on the plane, sitting in first class, she has these mixed feelings. It's nice her dad's there, but she feels awkward. She usually flies economy.
Right, it's not her usual experience.
And it makes her think hard about that contrast, how differently people are treated based on who they seem to be or who they're connected to.
That firsthand experience of the disparity really drives the point home for her.
She also finds herself thinking about Gloria, not with anger anymore, but wondering what will happen to her and thinking about the whole bigger picture of unfair treatment.
That reflection is really the turning point, isn't it? She's moving from her personal hurt to thinking about the systemic issue. It shows her awareness is growing, and maybe a sense of wanting to do something more.
And that's exactly where this goes. It turns into something really constructive. Jonathan, her dad, is already planning to make sure the airline reviews its policies, procedures.
Standard executive response makes sense.
But Amara, fired up by that leadership conference she just attended, has a different idea. She says, what if we proposed actual comprehensive diversity training for all staff?
Wow, okay. That's proactive, taking her negative experience and trying to build something positive from it.
She even has contacts from the conference, people who specialize in this stuff. And Jonathan, he loves the idea, totally supportive. They actually start working together on a formal proposal.
That's fantastic. And for anyone listening, this is such a great example of turning adversity into action. That aha moment where a personal challenge sparks a drive for larger change.
Her mom, Angela, apparently chipped in too, bringing insights from her work in the nonprofit world.
So it becomes a real family effort, drawing on different strengths, collaborative problem solving. Love it.
They even set up a video call with Amara's friends from the conference, the ones who do this kind of training. They start brainstorming modules.
Getting to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, not just surface level stuff. They're talking about digging into unconscious bias, how it works, sharing real stories, using interactive sessions, and importantly, follow-up, making sure it sticks.
That's crucial. Training isn't a one-off fix. It needs reinforcement.
The proposal starts taking shape. They include research, stats on the benefits of diversity training for companies, and interestingly, Amara decides to keep her own story, the specific incident with Gloria, out of the main proposal narrative.
That's a really smart, mature move. It makes the proposal about the systemic need, not just about rectifying her personal experience. Keeps it objective, focused on the broader benefit.
Right. It strengthens the case for why the airline needs this, regardless of what happened to her specifically.
The detailed planning shows they're serious, taking an evidence-based approach.
Okay, next big step. Presenting to the board, or at least a subset of the board initially.
High stakes.
And Imara leads it. She presents the proposal, speaks really clearly about the impact of unfair treatment on passengers, on staff morale, and how this training can make a real difference.
Taking charge. That's impressive growth from the young woman at the gate.
There's one board member, Cynthia, who's a bit skeptical, raises concerns about cost, logistics, the practical stuff.
Which is fair. Those are valid business considerations.
But Mara handles the questions confidently. And Jonathan's there too, providing the financial perspective, showing how it could be a worthwhile investment, not just an expense.
Addressing the concerns head-on as a team, it strengthens their argument.
The initial reaction from this group is positive, but it's not a done deal yet. More steps needed.
Okay, so things are moving. What about Gloria in the meantime?
Right. So the internal investigation is happening simultaneously. And it turns out Amara's incident wasn't the first complaint about Gloria's behavior.
Pattern. That's often the case, sadly.
Yeah. Multiple documented incidents of discriminatory actions. So ultimately, Gloria's employment is terminated.
There's the accountability piece.
Amara hears about it, but the account says she doesn't feel happy or vindicated. Just a quiet sense that it was the just outcome.
That tracks. It wasn't about revenge for her. It was about addressing the behavior. The termination confirms it wasn't just a one-off bad day for Gloria. There was a pattern needing intervention.
Meanwhile, buzz about the diversity training proposal is growing among the board members. They're really enthusiastic. The date for the final vote gets set.
So the momentum is building for the training initiative itself.
Full board meeting time. The proposal is presented again, likely with refinements, and the support is overwhelming. It passes easily.
Fantastic. A real commitment from the top.
Amara even gives a short statement, probably very impactful. Afterwards, executives are coming up, expressing strong support. It feels like a genuine turning point.
That signals a real cultural shift, or at least the start of one, within the airline. Big win.
But Amara doesn't just hand it off. She stays involved. Works with her friends, works with the airline executives to actually shape the training program content.
Seeing it through, that's leadership.
They launch a pilot program first. test it out.
Smart. Get feedback, refine it.
And the initial feedback, overwhelmingly positive. We hear about specific employees, like a flight attendant named Maria, who apparently had this moment of realizing, wow, I held some biases I wasn't even aware of.
That's the goal, right? Raising that self-awareness.
And a security officer, Malik, found the de-escalation techniques they taught really practical, helpful in his day-to-day work.
So, tangible benefits for employees in their actual jobs, that's crucial for buy-in.
Exactly. Based on that success, they roll it out company-wide. Mandatory training for everyone.
A significant investment showing the airline is serious about embedding this change.
And it doesn't just stop with the training modules. There's this follow-up gathering described, where employees actually share their experiences with the training. Richard, the supervisor from the initial incident, speaks very positively about the changes he's seeing.
That kind of open dialogue and positive reinforcement from leadership is so important to sustain change.
And there's this really poignant moment. An older flight attendant approaches Amara at this gathering, apologizes for what Amara went through, and genuinely thanks her for being the catalyst for this positive change in the workplace culture.
Wow. That must have been incredibly meaningful for Amara. It really brings the whole thing full circle, showing the ripple effect of her actions and her initiative.
Yeah, it really does. It underscores how systemic change can foster empathy, understanding, a real shift.
A shift in awareness, a collective step towards a more inclusive environment.
So when we boil it all down, what have we really seen here? This deep dive shows how one single act of prejudice, something that could happen to anyone, really maybe someone like you listening,
Right.
it didn't just end there. It actually sparked this significant systemic positive change within a huge company.
It's a powerful reminder about standing up to injustice, however small it might seem initially, and the incredible potential for just one person's initiative to, well, make waves.
Big waves in this case.
Definitely. And connecting back to you, the learner, this story is just such a clear example of how really understanding fairness, thinking about inclusivity, can lead to actual measurable improvements. In the company culture, yes, but also in individual people's daily experiences.
The aha moment maybe isn't just Amara's, but ours too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing how easily bias, even unintentional bias, can affect things, and how much value there is in bringing different perspectives together to drive change.
Couldn't agree more.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. How often do things like this, maybe smaller microaggressions, maybe bigger acts of unfairness, how often do they just happen, go unnoticed, unaddressed in all sorts of places, workplaces, communities?
That's a sobering question. What gets missed?
And what could be the benefit if more people felt empowered to speak up? If more organizations took proactive steps, like this airline eventually did, to really build environments where everyone feels respected, treated fairly?
And what role could each of us play, in our own spheres in helping create that kind of change? Even small steps matter.
Definitely something to reflect on. Consider how these ideas we've talked about might resonate with your own experiences, your own fields of interest.
There's always more to unpack, always more to learn from stories like Amara's.